Welcome back, curious minds, to another Animal Notebook Explainer. Today, we're getting into something pretty wild. Snails. Slow but stunning creatures. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. You're picturing those sluggish little garden pests that chew up your hostas, right? Well, we are going to completely flip that perception on its head. These tiny guys are actually literal biological marvels. I'm talking bizarre anatomy, insane survival skills, and a family tree that goes back hundreds of millions of years. To give you just a quick idea of how complex they are, let's start with a massive number. 25,000. That is the maximum number of microscopic teeth a single snail can pack onto its tongue. Yeah, you heard that right. They've got this specialized feeding organ called a radula. It's essentially this ribbon-like structure, just covered in tens of thousands of tiny scraping teeth. So right off the bat, you can see there's way more to these creatures than meets the eye. So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. Number 1. Meet the gastropods. 2. Anatomy and survival slime. 3. Diet, life, and love. 4. Snail superpowers and extremes. 5. Humans and snails. And finally, number 6, we'll wrap up with 4 fast snail FAQs.
All right, section 1. Meet the gastropods. Let's look at this massive snail family.
The sheer scale of their family tree is just unbelievable. Snails belong to the class Gastropoda, which is part of the phylum Mollusca. And believe it or not, that makes them direct relatives of squids, octopuses, and clams. The word gastropod actually translates from Greek as stomach foot, which honestly perfectly describes their body plan. There are over 43,000 described species of snails out there, and they have successfully colonized almost every single environment on the planet. We're talking tropical rainforests, bone-dry deserts, freshwater rivers, and yep, even the deep ocean floor. Moving on to section 2. Anatomy and survival slime. Time to talk about armor and survival mucus.
Okay, looking closely at a snail's core anatomy, right at the top is the shell, which is mostly made of calcium carbonate. It actually grows with them in a spiral from a central point called the apex. Now, contrary to popular belief and cartoons, a snail can never just slip out of its shell. It's permanently attached to their body by this super strong muscle called the columnar muscle. Then, moving down to that large, flat, muscular foot, well, that's their engine. As it moves, the foot secretes a highly specialized mucus, and this slime, it's an absolute miracle of nature. It acts as a lubricant, an adhesive, and a protective barrier all at the same time. In fact, this slime is so incredibly effective at reducing friction that a snail can literally crawl directly over the edge of a razor blade and be completely unharmed. Isn't that wild?
And this whole setup changes based on where they live. Because land and marine snails live in such vastly different environments, their breathing apparatus had to evolve differently. Land snails actually breathe air using a lung-like cavity, and they access it through a breathing pore on the side of their body called a pneumostome. Meanwhile, aquatic snails typically rely on gills to pull oxygen straight from the water.
Which brings us to section 3, diet, life, and love. Get ready for some bizarre romantic rituals.
So here's a crucial thing to know. Most land snails are simultaneous hermaphrodites. That means a single snail has both male and female reproductive organs. But they usually still seek out a partner to mix up their genetics. And here is where it gets a little strange. Before mating, some species will literally fire a sharp calcium love dart directly into their partner's body. I know, it sounds super aggressive, but this dart delivers hormones that actually improve sperm uptake. After that intense little courtship, they'll find some damp soil and lay a cluster of about 30 to 120 small, pearly white eggs. Those will hatch into tiny, super fragile baby snails in just 2 to 4 weeks.
All right, section 4, snail superpowers and extremes. Let's look at some biological extremes. When we start looking at the extremes in the snail world, the results are honestly pretty shocking. First off, if you think all snails are tiny, you've got to meet the giant African land snail. Found in tropical rainforests, this absolute behemoth can grow up to 15 inches long. Then we have the marine cone snail, which is a highly active predator. It hunts fish by firing a venomous harpoon-like version of that radula tooth we talked about earlier. Some of these guys are so venomous they can actually be fatal to humans. But my absolute favorite, the scaly foot snail. This one lives 2,400 meters deep near hydrothermal ocean vents, and it actually incorporates iron sulfide right into its shell and foot scales. It is literally the only animal on Earth known to use actual iron for biological armor. How cool is that?
On to section 5, humans and snails. It's a pretty complicated history. We really do have a fascinating, complicated relationship with these guys.
On the fruit front, archaeologists have found roasted snail shells dating back 30,000 years. And obviously that tradition continues today, with delicacies like French escargot. More recently though, snail mucin, that amazing slime, has completely exploded in the skincare industry. It's packed with hyaluronic acid and peptides, making it amazing for hydration and healing. But maybe the most mind-blowing thing? Scientists have taken the deadly venom of that cone snail and turned it into an FDA-approved painkiller called ziconotide. It's a staggering 1,000 times more potent than morphine for severe chronic pain. Now, on the flip side, they aren't all helpful. Agricultural pests, like that giant African land snail, end up causing billions of dollars in crop damage globally every single year.
And finally, Section 6, 4 Fast Snail FAQs. Let's hit some rapid-fire snail trivia to wrap things up.
First up, the question everybody asks. We all know they're slow, but scientifically speaking, exactly how fast do snails actually move?
The answer is roughly 0.03 miles per hour. That's about 50 meters per hour. So, yeah, while that firmly places them among the absolute slowest animals on Earth, their method of getting around, using that muscular foot and mucus trail, is actually highly energy efficient.
Moving to question 2. How long do these slow-moving creatures actually stick around?
Well, it's really a tale of two environments. Out in the wild, where they're constantly battling predators and weather, garden snails usually live about 2 to 5 years. But in the safety of captivity, they can live up to 25 years. Oh, and here's a really fun bonus fact. Just like a tree, a snail's shell has growth rings. You can literally count those rings to estimate their exact age.
Question 3. We know they need a lot of moisture, so how on earth do they survive extreme weather, like severe droughts or freezing winters?
Turns out, they are absolute master survivalists. During really hot, dry conditions, snails enter a state called estivation. Basically, they retreat deep into their shells and secrete this special, thick mucus that dries into a solid door right over the opening. It's called an epiphagrum, and it completely seals in all their moisture until the rain finally returns. On the flip side, during freezing winters, they'll bury themselves deep in the soil and hibernate, dramatically dropping their metabolic rate just to survive the frost.
And our final trivia question dives deep into their internal biology. Is snail blood red like ours? Prepare to be amazed. Snail blood is actually blue. Unlike us humans, who use iron-based hemoglobin to carry oxygen, snails use a copper-based protein called hemocyanin, and that turns blue when it's oxygenated. This blue blood is just slowly pumped through their little bodies by a resting heart rate of only 40 to 50 beats per minute.
I mean, just look at them. It's so easy to view snails as simple, cute, or sometimes annoying little creatures you see crossing the sidewalk after a rainstorm. But as we've uncovered today, they are incredibly complex marvels of evolution. From their 25,000 teeth and literal iron-plated armor, to their friction-defying slime and copper-laced blue blood, they are tiny titans of survival. I really want to leave you with this final thought today. With creatures this complex living right under our feet, what other tiny marvels are we walking past every day? Nature's infinitely fascinating if we just take a second to look a little closer. Thank you so much for joining me today. Keep asking questions, stay deeply curious, and don't forget to subscribe to the Animal Notebook channel for more fascinating explainers just like this one. See you next time.